Hi, Deacon Ed McCormick on this beautiful Sunday morning, and I've just come from Mass and preached a homily, and I want to share this message with you. The message comes from today's gospel, where Jesus is in the temple in Jerusalem and he's in a debate with the Sadducees. And in this debate, we get a glimpse into the way Jesus viewed the world. We get an insight into what motivated him to live his life, to engage in his ministry, to even approach his death and resurrection. And if we're to be his followers, if we're to take on the mind of Christ, we too must begin to see the world as he did. We must begin to adopt his kind of imaginative vision of the world and what motivated him. And here's the line in this gospel today that gives us an insight into how he was thinking. He says to the Sadducees, "The people of the present age marry and are given in marriage, but those worthy of the future age, those who will share in the resurrection, will not marry." Now, what I want to focus on is the language of the present age and the future age. Jesus divided history into the present age and the future age, and all his contemporaries did this. This is how John the Baptist thought, St. Paul, this is how Mary would have thought, or Peter. They divided things into the present age and the future age. And if we can begin to see the world this way, we will understand much of the New Testament and much of what Jesus said and did. You see, Jesus looked at the present age as a world that is corrupt and distorted and disordered and filled with violence, and not what God intended. And he viewed the future age, an age in which God will one day act to free the world from violence and evil and renew all things. And this future age that Jesus talks about is not heaven. He calls it the kingdom of God. And in the Our Father, he teaches us to pray that the kingdom of God will come on earth. Now, here's a way for us to begin to allow ourselves to see the world as Jesus sees us. I want you to first of all imagine all the things in our present world that you wish we could get rid of. Let's start with poverty and violence and war and injustice and hatred and hostility. Perhaps the destruction of our climate, the suffering of children and illness, and certainly death. And now I want you to imagine how you would hope our world would be. What would it look like? Well, there would be peace. There would be love. Relationships would be restored and renewed. People would have forgiven each other. There would be no more suffering, no more sickness, no more death. And I'm sure you could add many other things to that list. But here's what I want you to now imagine. Imagine an event in which all those horrible things in our world would suddenly be eliminated, and all the things you hoped our world would contain suddenly appear. Now that event, we believe, is Jesus, his ministry, his death, and resurrection. Now, of course, it hasn't happened immediately because it requires our cooperation. And here's the challenge that I pose for you today. If we really understand the gospel, Jesus is calling us to live as people of the future age, to live as people who live and are motivated out of his life, out of God's love and peace and truth, and to let go of the ways of the present age. This is the challenge we face if we're honest about our relationships, how we relate to people in our family and our friends, to colleagues. We will often find that we often operate out of behaviors and assumptions and attitudes of the present age. I mean, right now we're witnessing many Christians who claim to be Christian but actually serve the present age. They're serving the forces of racism and anti-blackness, of the rising anti-Semitism, the political violence and all the language and rhetoric that goes with that. That's all service to the present age that Jesus is trying to free us from. And to the extent that we serve our grudges and our resentments, if we serve envy and jealousy and rage, we are cooperating with the present age that Jesus is trying to free us from. But here's the good news. Jesus believes that God is a God of life, that death has nothing to do with God, and that God's vivacious, beautiful life is coming into our world through Jesus to free us from the present age. And our task is to say yes to this new way of living. And I want to leave you with an image, and it's the image of the risen Jesus standing before you each morning, beckoning you, calling you to leave behind the habits and attitudes of the present age that you learned from your family and from friends and from the media, and begin to step into the new way of living, God's future world, a way of living that involves peace and forgiveness and love and truth and compassion and mercy and justice. This is the gospel, my friends. This is what we are called to live each day as Catholics and as Christians, to let go of and get freed from the habits and attitudes of the present age and be on the front lines, the future of humanity, by living according to the kingdom, living out of Jesus' life today. See you in the next video.